Welcome back to Why Are We Like This, the podcast that treats Florida like the active crime scene it is. I'm your host, David Quinones, and I'm joined by my Argentine co-host. He ain't Messi, but at least he's not a red card snitch. Tomas Kennedy. What's up, Tomas?
I would have snitched too. with my little hand up.
Sir. He said bad words. And if Tomas is here, that can only mean that we're also joined by our other co-host. That's his secret, Cap. His diarrhea is always explosive. It's Gerald Doherty. Hey, Gerald.
Phenomena. All right, never mind.
Well, now we've had an entire World Cup and the quadrennial festival of sports showcasing teams and fans from around the world and their absolute worst behavior. And I can say with full faith and confidence that Tomas Kennedy remains my favorite Argentinian person that I've ever met or seen or encountered. But there's a lot to talk about. And
I'm flattered and honored.
I mean, to be fair, it's a low bar, but
yeah. I am also my favorite Argentinian.
I would say like maybe your parents are up there.
That's right. It's true. My mom is delightful. She's lovely.
So we are fortunate to again have back one of our favorite guests, Kartik Krishnaiyer, who's going to talk us through what happened. Hey, what's up, Kartik?
David, great to be with you. Thankfully, the tournament is over. I wasn't sure I'd survive it. It's been a long haul. Feels like it was a year long.
So we're going to get to it. But first, I wanted to jump on a couple just quick notes and stories that have been going on here in Florida and beyond. Number one, I kind of alluded to it with my cheeky my cheeky introduction to Gerald, which is the cyclosporiasis, which is a parasite that is popping up now in throughout Florida and many other 34 other states too. I just wanted to bird dog this because like everybody noticed that it, obviously that they have explosive diarrhea and that there is has been like kind of a weirdly concerted effort to obscure the origin. I think most people have agreed that it's a result of like a Mexican farm owned by Taylor Farms, the purveyors of, Taco Bell, the iceberg lettuce, and your favorite little baggies that I used to love. I used to love those salad baggies, but now I can't buy them anymore. And apparently, if I'm getting the timeline right, after lobbying many GOP politicians over the course of 2024, 2025, and paying and contributing to their campaigns, they were successful along with many other industries and players in those industries and in curbing some regulations that maybe would have caught this. Who knows? Who's to say? Maybe would have caught this problem beforehand. And just over the last week, they used some of that well-earned capital to get a private audience with the White House and get the FDA to issue what they called an apology, which the FDA was very clear moments later to say, like, this is not an apology. We were not wrong. We misidentified one, incorrect, false positive. It's just, I don't know, guys. It's just is one of these things where it's like it's the Steve Bannon thing where they just create a churn and the flood of shit, in this case, literally. And like, you never really, and you walk away from the story with like diarrhea and not really knowing exactly how you got it or who's to blame. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean,
I think
Gerald's just laughing. Gerald doesn't even want to address.
It's just look. Everything is going badly. The inflation, the war in Iran is back. The markets are like wobbly. The AI bubble's about to burst, and that shit's not profitable, and it doesn't work. And now, like, we're literally like dying of like dysentery. In this country, we're like shitting our brains out. Like,
yeah,
this is 2026, and people are literally getting like dysentery, across the country. Like, what?
It's like trench warfare.
Yes, dude.
So this is Donald Trump's MO. This is Donald Trump's MO. So basically, we curb regulations, right? But how can we monetize it? We're not just ideological conservatives who believe in no government regulations. We want to actually profit off of it. So what Trump does and Trump's team do is they basically tell Taylor Farms and other entities like that, you know what? We don't like all these big government liberal regulations, but there's basically a quid pro quo. We'll remove the regulation and then you pay us. And so a week after the regulation was removed that you referred to, David, a year ago or a year and a half, right after Trump came into office, so it must have been January or February of 2025, Taylor Farms donated $1 million to the Make America Great Again PAC. You can't make this stuff up.
David, my chagrin was from a conversation with a relative who I love deeply, who I will not name, was going on a lengthy phone call with me, outlining all the foods that I eat that may not be safe to eat anymore because of this, and it was just a very gross and invasive conversation. But they did make a point on the vaccine skeptics who ask, do you know what you're putting into your body? And now the question is, do any of us know anymore?
That is a uniquely American thing, though.
Hey, yeah.
Yes.
Everything is a big old roll of the dice. Everything is Vegas, even just getting lettuce.
I really do feel that way. We're joking, but I really do like grocery shopping. I feel like, is this the magical shit myself food, or is it the other one? And I don't know, man. I guess it's just middle class privilege or whatever, that I never had to think that hard about this shit, and now I literally find myself thinking about it all the time, and it's pretty infuriating. However, you will be pleased to know, for those of us down here in South Florida, that we might not be able to compete with the more liberal parts of this country in terms of like safety and social safety net and like foods, reliability or whatever. But one area where we can compete with the big boys is in cost. It's official. This is from the Rob Report. Miami is now more expensive than New York, according to new data. The South Florida metro area's overall cost of living has surpassed that of the New York region. Congrats, Tomas. You came back just in time for it to be too expensive.
Take that, Mom Donnie.
Yeah, he left the silver for the gold right on time.
From the article, as a wave of wealth has flocked to South Florida over the last few years, Miami's transformation. Wait a second. Now I'm pretty sure I was told that wave of wealth was supposed to make everything better, and it was going to make it more affordable, and that they were going to somehow it was going to fall down in a trickling fashion to me and normal people. I don't know. I guess it didn't happen. Miami's transformation has been impossible to miss. The demand has driven home prices to new heights, with the cost of everything else from food to insurance climbing along the way. New data now confirms what many residents of the Sunshine State have already been feeling in their pocketbook. According to new Bloomberg report, the metro area down here in Miami is now more expensive than the greater New York City region for the first time in record. I feel it. Anybody else? Tomas, you would be, I guess, the chief one, here in the belly of the beast of Miami, along with me, to have noticed things. You live a pretty Spartan lifestyle, though. I wonder, you scoot around people. It's like they can't get their hands on you.
What a great choice of words, considering that I am about to go watch The Odyssey. But yes, I do live a pretty frugal Spartan lifestyle.
Hellenic thoughts.
I mean, I notice it going out. You go out to drink, and it's like $30 for like a drink. You go get an arepa, at like Doggies or whatever, and you're paying $25, for a fucking arepa these days. It's crazy. It's bananas.
It's no fun.
Yeah.
It's manifesting in many, many different ways.
And I ride a motorcycle, and this is not a specific Florida thing, but you pile on that the gas prices that are, not only affecting you at the pump, but driving up the price of everything. It's just been crazy the last, not just a couple of years, but a couple of months.
So my next news and note is for those of you, Gerald and Tomas, who've been so critical of our federal government and our executive branch, and saying that they're do nothing and that they can't do anything.
David, we never said they would do nothing. It's
that they can't do anything but crimes and corruption.
Actually, I say the only people I say that about are Danielle Levine Cava and Eileen Higgins, who happen to be Democrats. If anything, I say that the federal government does too much.
Yeah.
So for those of you who think that the FBI and the Department of Justice are sitting around accomplishing nothing, this from the Miami New Times. Those of us who were paying attention over the weekend to social media saw it break almost in real time. The Tate brothers arrested on sex charges in Miami. What to know? Andrew and Tristan Tate have made several high-profile appearances in Miami since the allegations surfaced. I want to just give a little credit to the much maligned, who I really don't like, who I don't think anybody on this podcast is very fond of, Governor Ron DeSantis, who, like, if you were to set clocks by the occasional time that he's right, like, yeah, maybe it's like once or twice a year. He was on the record saying, please don't come here. We don't want people like you here in Florida when they came. Kudos to him. I don't know. I guess they forgot to like write a campaign check to him to like make sure that he was on their side. But yeah, I'm glad that these guys are like hopefully not going to come back. It seems their lawyer seems pretty confident that this is all a political hit job, and that as soon as the president finds out
by the Trump administration, like that's the thing.
I will say, true posters will know this reference, but there's a famous tweet by the account Drill, which some of you might be familiar. And it says, regarding the terror group ISIL, you do not under any circumstances gotta hand it to them. And that's how I feel about you, David.
You're saying handing it to DeSantis is maybe I should not under any circumstances.
You're not under any circumstances gotta hand it to him.
I've been hurt before. I did give him credit for being anti-AI several months ago, and he really fucked that up.
Yeah, then he named his prize.
And this one was brought to my attention. The last of our little news and notes for the day for this episode was brought to my attention by our own Tomas Kennedy, and I've called it the many faces of Commissioner Oliver Gilbert, the many painted faces. Miami-Dade paid more than $4,000 for 3 portraits of the same county commissioner before Commissioner Oliver Gilbert's likeness became the inaugural installation for a new portrait wall in the Miami-Dade County Commission chambers this month. The county paid $4,500 for 2 other paintings of him that weren't used, according to records and interviews. When fellow commissioners and Mayor Daniela Levine Cava gathered July 13th for the unveiling of a portrait wall to honor former board chairs, a painting of a smiling Gilbert was revealed to applause in the chamber. It goes on to talk about how he hired 2 different artists from Florida and then picked a printing that he had sitting around from some other older use of himself, like an old paint. That clearly of the 3 paintings, the one that he finally settled on is the most dog shit. It looks the worst. Like empirically, I'm not talking about like in the eye of the beholder. It just looks like shit compared to the other 3.
I agree.
Tomas, what did you think of this story?
It's insane, honestly. I mean, I know $4,000 is like, not even a drop in the bucket in terms of the county budget, but it really does send the wrong message when they just put out like the draft of the budget and they're like slashing bus routes. They're cut funding for metro rail infrastructure. It's like you might not want to be spending thousands of dollars in paintings of yourselves when you're like fucking over working class people that depend on these bus routes. But they don't care.
They don't give a shit.
And there's not going to be any consequences.
It is. I urge everybody to go look at the array of the 3 different paintings. They talked a little bit about one of the painters who like got the classic, like if you've ever worked as a creative in any industry, like that's like adjacent to like corporate America or whatever, that you get this like vague bullshit like feedback and just general like, oh, this isn't what we were looking for. I wish it could pop more. Can you make the logo bigger type bullshit feedback? And that's like what they gave to this guy. He's just like, okay, well, I don't know what to tell you. So, hope they get enough, eventually get enough paintings of Commissioner Gilbert to make him happy. But on to our main topic, the end of the World Cup 2026. It's over, everybody. We did it. We already knew. I kind of want to zoom out a little bit first, Kartik, as we talk about this spectacle, and we already know about like some of the stuff we talked about on our last episode, like travel bans. To reset the table a little bit, they affected Haiti and Iran. They also affected Ivory Coast and Senegal. It feels like the Somali ref controversy was like a year ago at this point. That was so long ago.
Yeah,
there was since we last talked, there was Trump and the overturning of the red card, the whole imbroglio with like the Seattle Pride thing. I feel kind of crazy to say it, but it all considered, it really feels like as hosts, things turned out kind of as best as we could possibly hope for this moment in American history. There was no huge, horrible, awful moments of national embarrassment. I mean, like, there was embarrassing stuff, but how do you think that the U.S. did as host nation? And can you try to like disambiguate some of the shortcomings that were like the fault of us as a country versus those of FIFA and the like garden variety, like FIFA corruption and incompetence? Because it's kind of like two sides of the coin, right? Like, Trump can ask for a red card to be overturned, but FIFA has to be the one to, you know, to give the world, what was it, the World Cup, the FIFA World Peace Prize winner. They have to be the ones to acquiesce to it. So, like, I guess, like, how did we do? What do you think?
Well, I think the foreign media was fixated on the visa denials and the situation with Iran and the Somali ref. And then the tournament started and it was all about the football. Then that Balogun thing happened. And I have to tell you, particularly in the UK, they still have not let go of it. 2 weeks later, they're still talking about it on the football and sports talk shows in the UK. I have to assume it's the same in Belgium. Well, obviously, Belgium was directly affected. France, Germany. It seems to be a Western European thing. I think it was one day and gone in the rest of the world. But as far as Western Europe was concerned, that was confirmation bias for them. That whole incident was, okay, we knew Trump had his hand in the cookie jar. We know Infantino listens to him. We always suspected the U.S. were going to get special favors, because I had British friends of mine before the tournament telling me, you know, the U.S. might win this World Cup. And I said, where do you get that? All the officiating will go their way. All the decisions will go their way. And I thought, oh, you can't. It's difficult to fix it at that level. I mean, if we're talking about a high-level nation, maybe getting a succession of calls, that's different. But the U.S. is not a high-level nation in the men's game. But at that moment, when the Balogun thing blew up, there was confirmation bias for so many people in Western Europe about FIFA, about Trump, about the U.S., and then the way U.S. Americans who are in the game, including some people who write for me, for my site, who I disagreed with, but I obviously allow them to convey their opinions. The way American soccer, the former players, the sportscasters, all of these people rally to make very weak legal arguments justifying it. The way that a lot of people, most of them actually are on the left politically. This is the amazing thing. This is the first time some of the people I know on the left politically agreed with Trump on something. But it was all about, hey, because there was this victimization complex that American soccer fans have, which also reflects kind of what's going on in this country. So there's this view that, you know, the Brits are always against us, the Europeans, they don't respect us, the South Americans, they come here and they, you know, Latino immigrants from South America look down upon us and the way we play this sport. And so they behaved incredibly poorly for 24 hours. And that was confirmation bias for the entire world about Americans and American soccer. And then the match kicked off in Belgium. You know, within a minute, you could tell. 43 seconds in, Castani puts a shot on target.
But all those people that you're talking about, all those people you're talking about, and us as a nation would have been insufferable if Belgium didn't absolutely beat the shit out of us. It would have been such a difficult series of news cycles after that. Yeah.
And I think the general consensus was Belgium needs to win to protect football, and they went out and within a minute we knew they were going to win that match. That was kind of the view.
Kartik, what I'm curious what you think is like the fallout for, you know, the player itself fallout, because I feel like especially Balogun, but like the overall players were caught in sort of like within a rock and a hard place by the Trump intervention. You know, where it's not. You know, I'm trying to be fair here, you know, because I thought the intervention was disgusting, and I'm glad that Belgium beat the shit out of the U.S. team. But, you know, I feel like now it's sort of tainted the reputation and career of these players that now have to go across the world, you know, and playing like European leagues and et cetera.
Yeah.
Do you think that's animosity, like sort of like geopolitically influenced animosity? will translate to like the individual players? Or
I'm
especially
worried about
the
that because
individual
one of the because one of the points I made to some of these people who were going crazy for 24 hours and showing that they all, even if they're as far left politically as they get in this country, which means that they would be on the center right in Europe. But let's face it, right? That's the left in the U.S. is the center is maybe the center in Europe, but that they believe in a certain degree of American exceptionalism, and they believe in a certain degree of rules being different for Americans. That came out front and center. And I told some of these people, Tomas, that I, as someone who's worked in the sport, had to overcome the obstacle of being an American to gain respect in Europe and in South America. And when I went to either the 2011 Copa America in Argentina, and when I've gone to cover the Euros in Ukraine and in France, how difficult it was, and all my time going to the UK in particular, UK and Germany, those countries in particular, to try and get over what was a glass ceiling for Americans. And just as a journalist, let alone what players had to go through. Players were always looked down upon if they were American, if they had an American passport 30 years ago. And a lot of these guys would try and get second passports, EU passports, so they would seem more legit. It wasn't just about free movement within the EU. It was also about their careers. Now, we're well past that. Now, we're 15, 20 years past that. And my fear is by doing this, by carrying on for those 24 hours, again, American soccer players and Americans who work in the game abroad are going to be faced with that sort of resistance. Like, hey, we made the mistake once. Now we really can't trust you. You can't be custodians. In fact, this was what I was hearing in the UK media. And remember, England beat Mexico the night before the US-Belgium game. Yet the next morning, everyone in England was, in the English language press in the UK was like, oh, great win in Mexico City. Now let's talk about these Americans. We can't let them be custodians of the beautiful game. They can't be the ones running it. And that broke my heart to hear that. But then when I considered what so many Americans were saying, I was like, okay, if I were British, I'd be reacting the same way. Absolutely.
Yeah. It makes sense. One thing I wanted to bring up about like the sort of like the crass nature of this particular cup that I feel like kind of embodies the over-commercialization and all the prices and all of the like the Americanization of it, which I don't think was actually the fault of America. Maybe the American media, is this concept of hydration breaks and how not soccer that is. How I'm curious what your take on that is. Is this something that we're going to see in 2030? Will that become a fixture of World Cup games?
Can I interject here? Because Kartik, I'm sure you've seen this clip. But, harking back to a better time in Argentinian football and reputation, there's a clip from Maradona from 2018, I think, where they asked him what will happen if the United States gets another crack at the World Cup, because I think the United States has hosted the World Cup twice. I think the first time was in the 90s or 94. And Maradona said, look, if the gringos get it, if the Yankees get it, they're going to split the breaks into 4 to add more commercials.
Yeah.
And Maradona's, he died a couple of years ago. He called it exactly.
Yeah.
What he said happened.
Yeah, absolutely right. And Maradona was right. And so many in Latin America were concerned about that. So many in Europe were concerned about that. It is about commercialization, because we do have rules about water breaks. And they even apply them in the United Kingdom, because at times it gets very hot in the UK, particularly in the London area, not necessarily in the north of the country. And so there are water breaks there. We have water breaks here in MLS and USL and NWSL. They're 30 or 45-second water breaks. Basically, come over, you get water, you get whatever, Gatorade, Powerade, and then you're back on the pitch, and it's maybe a minute added stoppage time. The 3 minutes was very deliberate, so that the English language broadcaster, and I have to mention, I watched the entire tournament on Telemundo, so I did not get exposed, but that's by choice, right? I have tried since Fox got the rights to FIFA tournaments to tell fellow travelers on the left, hey, why would you watch Fox? It's the same News Corp, it's the same Rupert Murdoch. Why would you watch soccer on Fox? You can watch it even if you don't know Spanish. You can watch it on Telemundo, or God forbid, get a VPN and watch it from the UK if you need it in English, right? Watch ITV or the BBC. But this was designed specifically for Fox to take commercial breaks, because Telemundo did not. The broadcasters in the UK did not. The broadcasters in Germany and France did not. The broadcasters in Italy, if you watch any Italian television, were mocking the break. They would openly mock it during the hydration breaks. So it was only for the American English language broadcaster to sell more ads, which of course they did. And will this continue as a way to monetize the sport? That's my concern, because even things like the score bug gradually got monetized. I mean, the score bug, when they started putting score bugs in the corner, it would just say, Manchester City won/won Liverpool, right? That's all it would say. Then they started adding sponsors to it. And then it would be like this stoppage time is brought to you by Geico. When the board will go up for 7 minutes of stoppage time. So there has been gradual efforts by American broadcasters, particularly in the English language, to monetize football or soccer, because they're so used to being able to break every 5 minutes in American sporting events, and they can't now. So they monetized the score bug. They would even put like split screens at times with Modelo ads and things like that. And now they've gone out to flat out taking a commercial during a hydration break. So, and I have to say, while Telemundo did not do that, I saw more commercialization of Telemundo's broadcast now in 2026 than I had watching the Euros on Univision in Espanol in 2024 and the Copa America in 2024. So they're kind of, remember, they're owned by NBC Universal, so they'll have Comcast, they'll have the same kind of corporate agenda, maybe not as bad as Fox, and they're gradually commercializing and this as well, which is not good.
Kartik, and we have to talk about the elephant in the room, the halftime show. The fucking halftime show that we were subjected for, what was it, 27 minutes, was it?
Pageantry, baby.
Minutes. I mean, I clearly my feelings. I don't think I need to elaborate more about how I felt about that halftime show. Just
the whole thing, the whole final. So I put out a video about how sterile the final was. That this was the full Americanization of football, because you had this guy before saying it's time, ready to rumble. You had all of this pregame stuff, the countdowns, the pregame concert. This is like a social event, which high priced American social event. And then the halftime show. Yeah, that was crazy. And so the BBC, I understand, did not show the halftime show. They just went to their studio, and once it was over, they were notified, okay, we're going back to New Jersey for the match. I don't know what other foreign broadcasters did, but I have to tell you, I was at the game when El Clasico came to Miami, or the Miami Gardens. Let's properly label it, Miami Gardens.
That was a disaster. I remember.
So Stephen Ross decides to do the same thing, have this halftime show. And the American journalists are all thinking, oh, this is great, and the Spanish and English journalists, that was the other two groups of journalists where they were like, what is this? This is disgusting. And, the Spanish are a little more polite. The Brits are like, that's why you can't have these Yanks run things. But they have total confirmation bias now, because this is what happens when, to quote them, when Yanks run things.
So to the craziest moments, I don't know, Kartik. I knew exactly what was coming for the halftime show. I will say, the Justin Bieber acoustic Hallelujah song or whatever, that was like a real just bummer, dude. But did you know, Kartik, that the Tom Cruise motivational speech with that insane background music was coming? Because I was watching it and I was a little drunk. but I literally felt like it was a fever dream. I felt like I was like literally like, having a hallucinogenic experience. I was like, what is going on right now? And it was long too. And then after he's done doing it live, it switches to a screen, like a pre-recorded message of just more Tom Cruise. It was just like insane.
And so there's a British journalist friend of mine, prominent journalist, who texted me at 4:00, which was supposed to be the kickoff time, or 5:00, when it was 3:00, 4:00, whenever it was supposed to be 3:00. Basically, like, this is why Americans can't be trusted with the sport. They're not even going to kick off on time because of the Tom Cruise thing and this and that. And so the kickoff was like 7 minutes late. And that would never be permitted in Europe or South America. You do that in Buenos Aires? Can you imagine doing that in a River Boca match? They'll storm the pitch. You won't even have a match. There'll be a riot.
Insane.
But then again, the people who paid to go to this match, I guess, were very, very wealthy, so they tolerated it.
I did not.
I wanted to ask about 2 points that you mentioned earlier about being an American, going to all these countries where the national sport is soccer, and not feeling like the U.S. had respect, because it's not our national sport. The way you get respect in any sport is by winning championships, or is with hardware, is with success. And yet, because the administration's relationship with FIFA and all the underhandedness that went on over the course of the Cup, it put it in a position where even if the USA did well, let's say they beat Belgium, let's say they went on to the next round after that, the better we did, the worse the world would have felt about it. We would have been thrilled because we like winning. And yet, because of the administration and their relationship with FIFA, they put it in a position where, at least for this Cup, I mean, maybe they won't have that kind of pull, in the future. Was it Portugal and North Africa, I think, for 2030? And then I think Saudi Arabia is the only bidder for 2034. So maybe they won't have that kind of pull, but they've put themselves in a position where any success, like these players who work so hard, would have, the better they did, the bigger villains they would have been on the world stage.
Yeah, I think the concern, though, among those outside the U.S., or particularly those in Europe, but I think it's also a concern in Latin America to a certain extent, is that American commercialization and American sponsorship dollars have so flowed into FIFA now. Because of the corruption scandal, a lot of Western European businesses that had traditionally done business with FIFA dropped them. So what you have now is a lot of American sponsors and a lot of sponsors from the Gulf, from the Persian Gulf region. Saudis, the PIF, Qatar Airways, the different businesses connected to the Sheikh in Abu Dhabi. Right? These are the people incubating FIFA now financially, to where American influence is never going to go away, even if Trump goes away, even if the World Cup is in some other place. That there's this American commercial influence, which I think is a metaphor for the globe, right? There's so much concern if you talk to people, again, particularly in Western Europe, about American technology companies kind of subverting the sovereignty of nation states in Europe. And I think this is definitely a problem in the global South that maybe they haven't recognized yet in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. It's being recognized in Europe first. A little bit of karma there because Europe colonized the rest of the world. So maybe now we're getting colonized by the American big business. But this is an ongoing concern, is that American financial influence, American tech companies, American sponsorship, sponsors of these large sporting entities, and in particular FIFA, has made the game responsive to the American corporate culture and the American corporate class. And it's going to act like any other Jack Welch protege incubated American corporation now. So that's the concern. And then you mix in the Middle Eastern money, and that's a whole other element of both ethics and corporatism that a lot of people are going to have a problem with going forward.
So that kind of begs a question for me, which is like the same question, Gerald. I mean, you've been around as a sports fan in this country for a really long time, just like me. And I feel like every 4 years, ever since 94 or 98, we are told like, this is it. This is the time. This is the moment when like the country is poised to become a soccer country. It's going to break into the big three or the big four of sports that we, follow. And I don't know, it's a very to me, I want to hear your thoughts on this, Kartik, because that's very nuanced, because it presumes that we aren't a soccer nation, and in some ways we already are. We all put our kids in soccer, like youth participation is huge. My daughter played soccer for 3 years, and it was just like almost like a rite of passage. As soon as you're able to control your bowels, we put you on and you're out of your diapers. We put you on a soccer field and let you run around like an idiot. I've heard a lot of interesting analysis about what happens, in terms of development in this country from ages like 10 to 20. And that it seems like that's the real shortcoming. And it seems like with so many other things, it's crass, cynical, and commercialized, where I mean, this is a problem with basketball too, baseball too, where it's turned into this expensive travel proposition. You go to a bunch of different private entities. You don't really develop in like a cohesive, centralized environment where you're going up against the best, iron sharpening iron, steel sharpening steel, which does kind of seem like the way the best sport, that's how the best sport happens. Like if you look at the way American football works, it's if you're a top 10 running back in the nation, you're eventually going to be going up against a top 10 linebacker. Like even if you have to leave Miami and go to Dallas to do it, it's going to happen. Like it'll find its way to happen. It doesn't seem like that there's that organization and centralization. And this gets caught up with all these stupid conversations. Everybody has the same 4 years about what if Allen Iverson or Michael Vick played soccer, and the same conversations over and over again, which seem like they're just like Bill Simmons type, bait or whatever. I don't know. What is your take on where we stand? Are we really any closer after this 2026 World Cup to becoming considered a soccer country? Are we kind of already a soccer country? And where are the gaps?
So I think the tipping point was when we won the 99 Women's World Cup, which everybody watched at that time. And that really pushed the envelope in terms of getting everybody to play
and be participant. Mia Hamm back then, dude. I was like every red-blooded American teenage boy. I had a huge crush on Mia Hamm back then. Yeah.
So I think that got us to a certain point, but we have a problem in this country where everything is financial. So if you are, we keep using the example of the UK, which is actually the system I know the best, and a lot of my media work is in the UK. That's the reason why every match I attended this summer was an England match. I didn't go to a US-17 match because my media connections tend to be in that country. But if you're English, there's a lot of problems with capitalism in the UK also. Don't get me wrong. But if you're English and you're promising, your parents will never pay a cent for you to play soccer and develop in that country. And then the youth club that develops you, as you move on to professional club, from one professional club to another, they will get compensated. So if they develop you and then you go to, let's say you go to Burnley, and then Burnley sells you for 10 million to Liverpool, that youth club that developed you will get a cut of that 10 million transfer fee. And then let's say you go for 100 million to Real Madrid, that youth club will get a cut of the transfer fee because Real Madrid will pay the English youth club a transfer fee. And this is an established thing around the world, even in Canada, where they do things so similarly to us. The only country that doesn't do that is the United States, because for various reasons we want to be able to charge the parents, so that then that's the incentive. So there's actually this is a wonderful metaphor about why American capitalism fails. There was actually no incentive to develop the player and then to place the player in a place where they can thrive, girl or boy. But we're supposedly the bastion of capitalism
to maintain. If anything, there's an incentive on these, like what you're talking about, these pay for play, increasingly owned by private equity firms.
That was the next thing I was going to find out, is PE money.
I9 Sports and all these kind of places, like there's like an incentive to kind of mire in mediocrity, because if you're coach, there's only so many great coaches and trainers out there. And if you have a kid that maybe could become great, but you don't want to lose that little, $1,000 a year that his parents are playing, like, you're going to do what you can to keep him with that mediocre coach, and he'll probably stay mediocre.
Yeah, so contrast the private equity money coming into all of this stuff and coming into professional soccer in this country too. Um, there is a situation where the community owns, the members of the community own every youth development club. And so basically, if you go to, I went to a youth club and spent a couple of days there in Elsenkirchen, which is in the Ruhr Valley. So it is the residents of Gelsenkirchen that will always own 50+1% of that club. So there's an incentive to develop local kids. Now, it is true the other 49% or 49.9% can be sold to whoever. But the 50+1 and the majority on the board will always be paying resident members who pay 15, 20 euros a year. Or maybe now, I mean, with inflation, it's probably 50 euros a year. But whatever, it's nominal. And that funds everything. We don't have this ethic in the US. Yeah, we don't have this ethic in the US. Everything is a for-profit thing. So the one youth club in Miami-Dade County that I think that phone call that was coming through to me was about that. The one youth club in Miami-Dade County, so it's a good incentive to talk about them, that doesn't do this is Little Haiti FC. So FIFA doesn't want to leave any money behind for clubs like Little Haiti FC, nor does U.S. Soccer. So we did a thing called the Miami Ball Run the other day. We dribbled a big soccer ball from Government Center, where Daniela Levine Cava graced us with her presence and said she was supportive after she's given FIFA $60 million, which will never come back to us in South Florida. But, she said the right things. And we kicked the ball all the way up to Little Haiti FC. So to raise some money for them, because that should be the legacy of the World Cup. Clubs like Little Haiti FC, and there are similar clubs in Broward and Palm Beach County. So in South Florida, we have a few of them that are free to play. But those clubs are not the ones getting the grants from U.S. Soccer. It's all these pay-to-play clubs who then have grant money coming in. They have private equity investors, and then they're charging the parents an arm and a leg. It's just it's criminal, and that is why. Yes, you said every 4 years after the World Cup, we say, "Oh, we're a soccer nation now. Oh, it's going to it's going to kick off in a way it hasn't before. Fandom is going to be different. We're going to develop better players." We will never do that unless this system is blown up. Unfortunately.
I have a question specifically about the U.S. men's national team. You alluded to the fact that our women are fucking great. They have been for a really long time. More evidence that people point to saying, like, see, it's because of football. Our best male athletes go to whatever. I have a question because I come from a school where unless there's a specific situation where you have like a dominant personality or some sort of elder, statesman who's like well respected on a team, your best player should at least be a co-captain. And it's a concern when he's not. It's a real problem if he's not even considered as like a second or a third option. So is this for the U.S. men's national team that seems to like exist within eras of their best player? Is it time for us to maybe consider this Pusilic era like over or move on to another chapter? Like, where does our U.S. men's national team? It seems like they had an okay. I mean, based on what their expectations were, at least, it seems like they had an okay outing, but nothing that really shook the world, right? And like, we're all about trying to fix what's wrong with our national institutions here on Why Are We Like This? And like, what does U.S. men's team need to do to come anywhere close to this international competition that wiped the floor with them?
So first off, Pulisic has never had the leadership skills, and I think has been overhyped since he was 18. I mean, I watched him in the Bundesliga. He actually played for the club I support there, Borussia Dortmund. So I have insight into him, and he was great at 17. He didn't get any better by the time he was 20. And there is a certain kind of mental lack of mental toughness he has. Now, that's not to say all American players are that way, but that is the biggest thing, I think, with American players and why the USMNT is not successful like the USWNT. We have had too many kind of soft touches through the years, and it's probably because they come from this pay-to-play system. Let's face it. You have a disproportionate number of suburban kids that make their way to the tops of this sport. And I'm not making a racial statement here because a lot of the African American players we've had are from wealthier, more comfortable African American backgrounds. I do think we have great athletes playing soccer. I think we have some of our best athletes in the country playing soccer. So I don't buy the Michael Vick, that Allen Iverson argument. I do buy the argument that they get soft because of our system. And they get soft because we are always trying to elevate our guys onto the world stage. So U.S. soccer and that propaganda machine goes into overdrive to try and compare a guy like Pulisic to any number of world-class players. I mean, NBC did this when he went to the Premier League. They put him on a billboard with Mo Salah, Kevin De Bruyne, and Harry Kane. And then the fourth guy would be Pulisic. It's like, of course these guys are going to have an outsized view of themselves. And they do that with every American player, every big American player. So I think that's the problem. We have to have some reality check. We have to dial down the American exceptionalism. We got to work at this like other countries do to get to where they have got.
And Kartik, to start closing out, we got to talk about the other elephant in the room, Argentina. Argentina.
I knew that was coming from you, Tomas.
Don't cry.
I do.
I would say, don't cry for me, Argentina, but no one cried for us, Argentina. No one
and save a few minutes, Tomas, before you leave, because I got to do we've got to do your little bit. So I think you probably have no shortage of people that have plummeted in your estimation.
Yeah,
but yes,
it's Argentina.
My estimation for the Argentina national team has plummeted quite a bit. But
we'll get to it in 1 second. But
I would say what? Okay, so first of all, I do want to sort of get your take on sort of this like anti-Argentina hate bandwagon. I'll give you my take. Obviously look, last time Argentina played in 2022, we were not sort of this. We're not an underdog team, but we were sort of like a scrappy South American team playing against like the better funded European teams. We didn't have Javier Milei, a third-rate Trump copycat that's like a Zionist and giving us a bad reputation across the world. And the Pope was also Argentinian and beloved. Now we don't have the Pope. We're not the underdogs.
Lost the Pope.
We have Javier Milei wrecking our reputation. And our players, honestly, I think did not handle themselves the best on the pitch. I mean, they did play aggressively, and it did not lend itself to a pretty picture of the team. I mean, South American soccer, football, as Kartik, is a little bit more tactile than what perhaps the international audiences, especially the Americans, might be accustomed to. But I still think it was way too aggressive the way that they played. Regardless, what is your take again on this sort of like Argentina hate campaign? What is your take on the accusations that Argentina got preferential treatment from the referees? What is your take on that terrible final that we saw? And just Messi's future and performance in this World Cup. I know it's a broad topic, but shoot.
So the ultimate paradox is that Uruguay was trying to play like Argentina in this World Cup because Bielsa tried to force his ideology. And I love Bielsa. I'm a Bielsaista, but I knew Uruguay was absolutely the wrong place for him. I mean, you talk about a country that plays the way that we're talking about Argentina played in this World Cup. And then Argentina played like Uruguay traditionally plays. A lot of the players also have not endeared themselves because of after the Copa America, I guess the video they made about the French players, the racist video that Enzo Fernandez was featured in, really turned kind of global opinion against them. And then the number of players that have been pictured with Milei and the number of people who are from other South American countries who have messaged me over the last 2 years to try and convince me Messi is a big Milei backer. Which I'm not sure he is. He's been pictured with him. He's been pictured with Ron DeSantis also. I don't think he knows who Ron DeSantis is, right? I think DeSantis came to an Miami game for a photo op. But that's well, and with who? And with Trump, yeah, he's been photographed with Trump also. So the combination of Milei is an important part of this because he is kind of seen as the Trump of Latin America. I saw this happen with Brazil too. When Bolsonaro was in office and some of the Brazilian players backed him openly, And they were all playing at European clubs, and they were telling European journalists, "You don't know what it's like in Brazil. This is why we have to back Bolsonaro." There was this reaction towards Brazil that I hadn't seen before. This counter reaction. So don't underestimate the importance of a right wing fascist in this story. But then I guess the Argentine. The reality is the Europeans are playing a much more strategic possession based game now than they ever have. So when you look at the top European countries, Spain being at the very top, but also England, France, the likes of Belgium, the Netherlands, they're all playing kind of a certain way with the high pressing and with the desire to keep the ball in midfield, and that's very difficult for Argentina to compete with. So they've had to go full Uruguay in their tactics. And I think people never expected it from the country of Maradona and of Messi. But at the same time, we have to remember how Argentina won in '78. With a military junta and this sort of style. I think Maradona so changed the image of Argentinian football in the rest of the world, even more so than Messi did, to where Argentina became beloved by neutrals because of Diego Maradona. And then everything for all of, whatever else you want to say about Maradona, he became very much, this is why he had the right analysis of the US before he died. He very much became the embodiment of the hero of the global South, Tomas, as you know, which Messi has never become. So neutrals in the rest of the world supported Argentina. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just, not just the hero of the global South, but I mean, his whole personality has always sort of been like this avenger of underserved people. I mean, even when he was in Napoli, that was his claim to fame. Getting the Southern Italians a little bit of revenge.
Exactly. I was going to mention that. So, to understand Maradona's persona, also, you have to understand how dominant Northern Italian corporate money and Northern Italian elitism is in Italian football. And he broke that stranglehold by going to Napoli. They love him in Naples. He is the most important person, probably. I'm not, and this is a crazy thing maybe to say about a sports personality. He's the most important person in the history of one of the oldest cities in Europe because of what he did for the image of that place. Argentina has lost all that. Now, the combination of Malay, the combination of the way Enzo Fernandez and these guys acted out, the accusations of racism, the fact that it seems like they were getting calls, even if, the Egypt game seemed very strange. I think it was I don't think it was fixed. I think there were officiating errors that obviously favored Argentina. But I think after that Egypt match, it was over for Argentina in the sense that everybody was rooting against them. Because also to understand, one of the most popular players in this era globally is Mo Salah. And if this had happened to some other random nation, maybe it would have been perceived differently. Oh, there were just some bad calls. But Mo Salah being denied his chance to go deep in a World Cup because it seemed like there was an agenda to promote Argentina. And then you have this Malay thing. You have the racist video. You have the aggressive physical tactics. All of that created a melting pot or a boiling point that just went into overdrive. And I'll leave you guys with this. So the night of the final, one of the major English dailies, UK dailies, led with the headline, "Football 1, Felons 0." Now, there was nothing that was felonious about the way Argentina's guys played, but the British media wanted to make it out like football had won because Spain had triumphed over these criminals. And that was the implication, that was the way the world was viewing it, even though it wasn't true, but it was perception becoming reality. Oh, Argentina is a bunch of thuggish felons.
Yeah, and I want to say one thing and then ask you one last thing. One is Enzo Fernandez should never be allowed in the national Argentinian team again.
Yeah.
A, because of his actions off the pitch, the racist chants after the Copa America, all that stuff. B, for the way he carelessly got himself kicked out of the pitch at such a crucial time. I mean, like, that guy, I don't know if my fellow Argentinians feel this way. I just don't think that guy should ever play in the national team again. It is outrageous the way he conducted himself in that team. Not just stupid, but unstrategically and self-defeating. The other thing is, I wanted to ask you, after Argentina beat England in that stunning reversal last minute, and they pulled out the Malvinas flag, and I don't really want to get into like a litigation of like whether the Malvinas are Argentinian territory or whatever, but more or less on like what the soccer punditry perception of it was, because as you probably know, in the Argentinian team, there are some players that are on the left and there are some players that are very pro-Milei. And Milei actually attacked the Argentinian team because he's like a Thatcherite that has like sort of like British sympathy. And he's always sort of been waffly, if not aggressive towards like national claims over sovereignty of the Malvinas by Argentinians. But he attacked the national Argentinian team when they unveiled that flag, saying that the Malvinas, the Falklands, are Argentinian, which is outrageous for an Argentinian president, not just to say that in the Argentinian popular conscience, but to attack the team right before the fucking World Cup final. But the sort of narrative in Argentina, and I think there's something to it, is that broke team cohesion and sort of morale, because a lot of these players, like for example, our goalie Dibu Martinez, he plays for Aston Villa in England. So this created an uncomfortable situation for a lot of the players that play in European leagues, particularly the British ones. So the narrative is that it broke cohesion and it put them in sort of like a bad mentality going into the World Cup final. What is your take on that?
Yeah, and then there was also the UK media seemed more fired up. They were fired up about the Malvinas banner, but they were also more fired up about Enzo Fernandez apparently making some comment to Jude Bellingham that got Bellingham to go after the Argentine fans, and then Chelsea fans to write to the club saying you need to sell Enzo Fernandez, because of course he plays in England, and Jude Bellingham actually plays in Spain, ironically enough. But that's the nature of club football. Players play all over. I think the cohesion was kind of broken. Enzo Fernandez, when he got that red card, that came at a time where it felt like Spain were not going to score. Spain had 10 shots on target. Enzo Martinez had dealt with all of them. And basically, the timing was unbelievable. The cohesion breaking is a very real possible thing. Because again, I want to talk about my point of reference on this, which is Brazil and Bolsonaro. So I know the Bolsonaro factor, and then also, I hate to bring this into the discussion, but Bolsonaro had a lot of the kind of converted evangelical Christian players backing him. And the players who remained Catholic on the Brazilian squad were backing Lula. And that broke the cohesion of their squad in 2022 when they lost to Croatia. And Neymar almost solely got them to the semifinals, but they lost in the quarterfinals to Croatia. Argentina's run has been based on a sense of purpose, a sense of unity, a sense of togetherness. And once that cohesion is broken, whether it's because of political reasons or it's because of religion or whatever, like I've said, in Brazil, it was a combination of both. And it turned out the Catholic players tended to be with Lula, and the evangelical, because they have had a big evangelical conversion going on in Brazil, as you guys know, more so than other Latin American countries.
Yeah.
So a lot of former Catholics have become Baptists or Pentecostals or whatever. They were backing Bolsonaro. So Tomas, I think that might be very real, what happened to Argentina. What you're saying, you would know more than me. I had not heard this, but that is exactly what began happening to Brazil as the politics between the Lula backers and the Bolsonaro backers got so intense. And just like the Brazilian population, which was 50-50, the football national team was 50-50, and they haven't won anything since that started.
Gerald, I'm very glad that we're going to be able to avoid a similar situation, because sadly we lost Mitchell Robinson. But that way we won't have to deal with the fissure in between the team of our single like pro-Trump star player on the New York Knicks. But
so it's been said Argentina walks on the path of the Jets by scoring 0 points at MetLife Stadium, honoring tradition.
Our guest today, because we're at the top of the hour, and we really do appreciate his time. It was Kartik Krishnaiyer, a long time why are we like this guest and why are we like this prolific contributor. He writes over at beyondthe90.net. You can check out his soccer coverage there. Follow him on x.com. Kartik, thanks for coming back on and
Thank you,
catching us up on
guys.
what happened.
Yeah, thank you, guys. And I know Tomas is going to see the Odyssey, so enjoy.